All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll start again. It's a fantastic start to this panel. We're actually missing a panel member, so I think it's all going to go swimmingly. My name's James Lawton. I'm the Director of Executive Services at Mercycare, and we're delighted to be part of this project, which has been absolutely fantastic. We have got a hard act to follow after morning tea. And after Lynn this morning, Orla, again, thank you. That was fantastic this morning, and just hearing the comments around the room, it was quite inspiring. So thank you for that. And Kuda and Christelle, I can see Christelle there. Kuda, he's disappeared as well. No, there he is. Thank you again, and to your team on the e-book. It's absolutely fantastic. You actually know I wanted to go and get it, so I went onto the website, but I believe it's going to be there very shortly. So, but a tremendous resource. So thanks to you and your team. I think it's fantastic. As we go into a panel now, we're looking again at new audiences and how to engage them. And we'll be looking at how you can do that through social media as the first part of the conversation, and the second part will be how we actually connect or make better connections between the aged care sector and the youth services sector. So there'll be two parts to our panel. I'll introduce the panel in a moment. I just want to continue Lynn's theme of mum stories. Because I do actually, as you've probably gathered, even though my mother said to me, "Oh James, you sound so Australian," which I did go, "Thank you very much, Mum." I don't think she means it as a compliment, but I think it was the schooling. She expected something else. So I do actually FaceTime Mum, so I did Skype and FaceTime, but I get her neck, I get the left arm, I get the right arm, I get the top of the head. She's absolutely fabulous again. "Hello darling, you there?" And just waving at me. It's absolutely fabulous. I'll tell you one other story about my mum, because my sister told me the other day. It's not related at all, but it's brilliant. And mums and daughters, you will get this from both points of view. But it was York Races recently in the UK. And so my sister went round, and she's 50, and she's still, wanting to get her mum's approval. And anyway, said, "Mum, do you want to see my dress for York Races?" Mum said, "Oh, that'd be lovely, darling." So Vic came in, and she had this. She'd spent an awful lot of money on this dress, to be honest. Mum just looked at her and said, "They just don't do nice dresses anymore, do they?" My sister was absolutely mortified. But mums do that so well. Anyway, absolutely nothing to do with this. I had to share it with you. But anyway, it's not about me, it's actually about our panel, or our three panel members. I did try to wait till Braden could join us. Still not here, good. From our right, we've got Stephen Kabelke, who's the CEO of ACSWA, or Aged and Community Services WA. I think many of you will know Stephen. Dr. Nikki Howe, who I think you will also know, who's CEO of Southcare. And we also have Emily Scarf, who's an OT at Brightwater, and also is leading a project called eFriends. And here he is. What a fantastic...
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
It was all planned. If you'd like to welcome Mr. Braden's here.
Whoa!
That's embarrassing. I'm so sorry.
No, tremendous entrance. I was trying to build you up a bit.
Yeah, thanks.
That's
I didn't hear what you really said, but...
That's right. Yeah, you've not got much hope now.
Yeah.
And Braden's the General Manager of Adventures WA. So there are some questions, and I'm really looking forward to the introductions. I'm really looking forward to Emily, to the eFriends and what you do there, and Braden also the Adventures, what you do there. But if I could just, maybe starting with Stephen, just a brief overview of your organisation, and we'll do that for each of you, and then we'll come back to some of the questions on social media.
Yeah, thanks very much. Aged and Community Services WA is the peak body representing the not-for-profit sector in aged care, both community, residential and retirement living. Our role really is to communicate, keep our members up to date with what's happening, to do some training, particularly bring people together to network, and of course at the top end of that is talking to politicians, or I guess advocating for reform. And I just acknowledge my colleague Beth over here, also out on the path with us, Beth Cameron, to do the same thing. So I guess at the end of the day, my role is to be an advocate for aged care, and it's an area that I feel very strongly about. Nikki?
Yeah, hi everyone. So Nikki Howe from Southcare. Southcare is predominantly a community organisation the interesting thing for me sitting here, you know, us all connecting in community, is that Southcare was actually started by a group of community members who got together and saw a need, and they saw that need around people needing financial assistance, emergency relief, and it just got bigger. So a large part of our business now is community aged care, and we really couldn't run our organisation without all our volunteers, so we've got about 120 volunteers. So a key foundation for Southcare is how the community looks after the community. So when you're well, you contribute into Southcare as a volunteer, and then as you get older and you can no longer contribute, then we look after you. So that's a fundamental foundation for what we do at Southcare.
Emily?
Hi everyone, I'm Emily. I'm here today representing BeFriend, and we're a Perth-based small non-for-profit. We've been running for about 2.5 years now. I'm an occupational therapist, and I also work as a clinician half the week. Specifically today, when we're having a conversation about technology, I'll be referring back to BeFriend, our organisation as a whole, but also the project that I manage called the eFriends project. And really, eFriends is about teaching people the skills and giving people the confidence to use technology to initiate and maintain online and face-to-face connections. And I think one of the questions later on is about that balance between face-to-face and online, and I'm looking forward to continuing that discussion with everyone. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Braden Zier. I'm the general manager of an organization called Adventures WA. We work with at-risk young people in the Southeast Metro Corridor region of Perth. We've been operating since 1985, formerly as Carawera Community Project, and we moved over to Adventures in 2004. We run a bunch of different programs. The focus of our programs is usually help people help themselves. So we create programs that young people can engage with and really build their own futures and their own destinies within that program.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think what you're going to find is we're going to have some fascinating viewpoints. We're going to have, is traditional a fair enough word? If I can say on our right, they're probably more experienced.
Maybe we should take our glasses off.
Knowledgeable.
Yeah.
I'll shut it. And we also have some younger, innovative
Settle up later.
yeah, that's it. But I also know that Nikki and Stephen use social media significantly, so I'll stop taking the piss and keep moving on. But I do want to keep some humour in this, as we've just had some tea and try to keep this going. But I would like to know how each of you use social media, how you use it, and what your key target markets are. And I might start with Emily.
Okay. When I speak today, I'll probably speak about BeFriend as a whole, as well as eFriends together, rather than kind of trying to tell you one about one and one about the other. Really, as far as social media goes for BeFriend and eFriends, it's a way to connect with our members and our participants. It's also a way to build teams and relationships between our volunteers, our team leaders, and also carers within our network. And also, I guess, we've got lots of kind of pipe dreams about where we would like to take our use of social media and online mediums. But as you know, sometimes things like developing online resources or e-newsletters, it all takes time and money. And so it's about finding or coming to the realisation that having an online presence and showing your face in the online space should be a priority, because it then flows on to connecting with other audiences, as the whole theme of the day is. So I guess as we go on, I can probably share a bit more detail, but as far as the mediums we use emails, Skype, Facebook. We don't use Twitter, and we also are looking at developing an app. So they're probably the main forums.
Is there a reason you don't use Twitter?
I don't think there's a specific reason. I guess when we're looking at members, the member base of BeFriend and eFriends, a lot of people that we associate with have entry-level barriers to actually accessing technology in the first place, and that's why eFriends was created. A lot of our members weren't even at the point where they were able to go onto their email and receive our social calendar, and that's why eFriends was created, because there was an obvious need to provide appropriate technology training for our befriend members. So I guess for Twitter, it's for a lot of our members understanding before they actually are involved in it, the reasons why you would use it and safe ways to use it and things that probably aren't appropriate to share on Twitter. And for some people that can be quite a challenging concept. As far as our leadership team goes and using Twitter, Nick Maisie, who founded befriend, I think he should be on Twitter because he's an amazing person. And like we spoke about before, it's all about following and giving people the opportunity to follow, and if they're interested in you, you need to give them that opportunity. So I can definitely see the benefits of Twitter.
And 2 points you made there that I see as important is education and training, which we might come back to later.
Yeah.
Stephen, I know that you're a significant social media user.
Look, I probably the biggest user, my biggest use is around Twitter. But so our organisation has a position which we've developed slowly. We feel we've worked pretty steadily through both online and development of our jobs portal, agecarejobs.org, which is the #1 hit on Google after you get past the ads. So we've been working through that, but the social media was probably just a bit out there and we weren't sure how we're going to tackle it. And it's only in recent times that we've actually moved within the organisation to go to social media. So a lot of our things we have them automatic from our site, go straight onto onto Facebook and onto Twitter. But I wanted to share my own journey. My journey on Twitter started when there was a promotion around 2009 when they used a sort of Kevin Rudd ad on which they'd aged him, and this created was done by a big advertising company out of Sydney, and they aged him, they aged Malcolm Turnbull, and they had they picked up huge worldwide coverage on this, and at the time they suggested that people should go on to Twitter to back up this promotion. So I joined that, I think it was around 2009 September. And so what I really like personally about Twitter, so I have my own account. So, and I do qualify on the account that this is my own comments, but I can rest assured there's nothing I say on Twitter that I know my board wouldn't support. So, and it just happens, my board happens to go very hard and I'll go hard. But, so I know that's in the back of my mind. But I find Twitter, and it was picked up earlier in the presentations, it's the same as social media, the excitement about social media. It gives you a voice out there. You become part of the news. You can, I had comments come back to me indirectly from bureaucrats. Can we get a court put back in Cabalki and Perth? Now this could be a good or bad thing, but it does give you a voice to say what you like, and the blog, which I don't do, but it's encouraged me more to go to that today. So on Twitter, I'm aiming to put a message out about aged care, but early on I was told, you need to moderate that with sharing a bit of yourself. And so on mine you'll see a mix, I'll maybe talk about Led Zeppelin or something, but or whatever. Led Zeppelin's a rock group for me.
I know who they are.
But I saw Led Zeppelin live at Subiaco Oval. I'll share that with you. That's how I know. But I think that's the thing about it, that is to continue to push a message or get a message out that may be contrary to the main scheme, or just to share information. And so I think that's one of the things that I really like about social media. I love technology, but it's about the blog and Twitter and Facebook is about, you're part of the scene. You're actually creating news, or putting your news out. So I monitor how many people I follow, and I think I maybe have 700 followers, but that is pretty well a solid list. I just have this stupid thing that I tend to block. Some of the peripheral stuff, I don't want them following me. Mainly, so if somebody looks at my list, I have this ethic thing about it. If they look at my list of who's following me, it's a pretty solid list of people who are interested in not just aged care, but you know, journalism or whatever the case might be. So that's my situation, and so I'm driving it more personally than through the organisation, but we'll develop it out through the organisation on a separate Twitter site or Twitter position.
And so probably your target markets, are you getting media and politicians following you? Is it a tool, or is it to other members, or who's your, is it a variety?
Yeah, look, it's certainly not members. I mean, there are some members, but mainly I'm interested in if I get followed by a journalist, that's good. A politician, that would be fine. I mean, it's but it's probably journalists, but also just people interested. I mean, a lot of the acorns have followed me, which is really good. I mean, and I'm hoping I'm not boring you silly, but no, I think it's a broad cross section. But I think you know, use of not too many hashtags, but the aged care hashtag and the Oz poll, and if it's in WA, the WA poll, about only 3 I use. So going into the Oz poll, then I find people will retweet or they'll comment out from outside my group because they've picked it up on the Oz poll. That's fine for me. If I'm creating some thought like this group's done about aged care or the ageing process or positive ageing, that's a positive. It's a small part of a big picture.
So generating discussion and raising awareness. Yeah. Braden, maybe over to you.
Yeah, sure. What we use currently is Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter very poorly. So I may need to take some tips. It's something that I really want to get involved in more. How we use Facebook's really been a great tool for us because the young people we work with always join our Facebook page, and that's become a way for us to check in on them because they post everything. They post if they're having a hard time, if a tragedy's happened in their lives, they'll post it on Facebook. So we'll be able to just have a quick read through and say, oh, you know, something, John needs help, give him a call. How are things going, mate? Can we plan a catch up? Or a lot of them will run out of credit on their phones, but they'll always know where the hot spots are. They'll always go to a McDonald's, they'll go to some house with open internet, and they'll be able to check their Facebook. Always, they're on it.
Yourself, make sure you have your
make sure it's on. So it's been a really good tool to get in touch with our younger clients as well, and it's been a really good promotion for the organization because we have government funders on there, all the way down to young people. So it's a bit of a rough and ready thing. Like there's posts on there that aren't necessarily the most clean and polished posts, but I think I personally don't mind that because it shows us as who we are, which is just a grassroots, in your face, young, you know, we work with young people, and it's a great platform to just show who we are and what we're doing in the community.
It's very genuine.
Very genuine, yeah, and that's what I like about it. It's easy going. Anyway, and you know, it does take a little bit of management sometimes. I've seen some pretty disgraceful things put on.
We might come back to those.
Yeah, we'll come back to those. And then LinkedIn, it's a great networking tool, I think, in business and meeting and networking with other people, finding providers, different people that will be able to help and support our organization. We've received a good handful, a good group of people, good volunteers that just wanted to get involved in a not-for-profit through LinkedIn, so that's been really helpful as well. Yeah.
And Nikki, you started your journey, I guess
Yes.
you're into youth ambassador type roles and coach and mentoring, but you've gone through a fairly major journey over the last 3 or 4 months.
Yep. So when I talk about me using social media, it's Nikki Howe, it's not Southcare, and that's been an interesting journey for me because myself and Vicky, who's in the room, and Viv, we're sort of the marketing team from Southcare, and you know, for all of us in the not-for-profit, we all know what that means. You know, we don't have any money, so we have a go at trying to be everything and do everything. And so part of it for me was, I don't know anything about social media and there's nobody in the organisation, so what are we going to do around social media for Southcare? I remember having a conversation with Francis a couple of years ago, and Francis we should actually have up here rather than me, but Francis said to me about LinkedIn, so I got onto LinkedIn, and then we were at the WACOS conference and he showed me how to get onto Twitter, so I sort of had this LinkedIn thing, had this Twitter thing, And then my son was going off to New York and he said, oh Mum, you've got to get onto Facebook and Skype. So that was my social media sort of journey. And then of course I met the beautiful Alicia, and she said to me, oh Nikki, you know, you're going to have to get a, you know, like it'd be useful if you can blog. I remember she said to me, oh, it'd be useful if you can blog on our website, you know, our Engaging Young Leaders. What? How do I do a blog? You know, and so that's when Alicia connected me with Gihan, and that's really why I've had this big learning curve, because he's been mentoring me. And so I tend to, I'm a blogger, I love blogging, I like writing stories, and I like writing things that are about what I'm interested in, which is about human relationships at work and all the breakdowns. And I think in some ways my blog's linked to what goes on in Southcare or in any organisation, but I don't, it's not really about Southcare as such, but it's about people. So I love blogging. I think LinkedIn is an amazing tool, and I put a question on LinkedIn yesterday. I wanted to know something about constitutions and what's best practice. And you know, it's just amazing, because all of a sudden, you know, I had all these people giving me really great advice, you know, really good solid advice. It's like, oh, I've got my own, you know, experts out there. So I use LinkedIn, and I do use Twitter, and I tweet, not, what did I say once, Alicia? Do I need to Twitter this? I said to her, she goes, you Twitter. So I do use Twitter, and I use Skype privately, and I don't use Facebook for, I've got some wild girlfriends, and I don't want to connect my Facebook, like I don't want to connect my Nikki Howe brand with my some of my girlfriends. So,
we might come back to that later.
We might come back to that. So, and I see this as part of a learning journey, so that what we want to do in Southcare, I then have got a sense of, well, what does it mean? You know, how do we use it for Southcare? So for me, it's been a bit of a, okay, well, I'll learn myself, and then we can use that for the organisation.
Excellent,
So,
thanks.
yeah.
Certainly when I heard the term blog and someone says, do you want to do a blog, I thought they were talking about some bull dust that they wanted me to write. So, while we're just talking, Alicia put a blog on about how people use social media, and Nikki, you mentioned Francis, who's the president of WACOS. Francis, you as a CEO of RUA and as president of WACOS use social media?
Yeah, I do.
Can you just give some examples?
Yeah, I mean, I use probably Twitter more than other things, but I use LinkedIn quite a lot. I've really been trying to use LinkedIn a lot more over the last probably 6 months. But with Twitter, it's often for me about trying to actually give a sense. I virtually never tweet anything about RUA. It's actually about what I'm interested in my role.
Okay.
So I talk about homelessness, I talk about Indigenous, Aboriginal issues, I talk about environmental sustainability. And so I'm often, I mean, someone used the word before about curating. I follow a lot of people. I follow almost 1,000 people, and I've got about 600 odd followers. But I find that Twitter has become almost the go-to place for me to understand what's going on from the people who I'm interested in, and often it's the first place I actually find out something, and then, you know, so I'm actually then going and saying what's going on about this, or I try and find the information, and I'm really conscious of who, you know, what I'm saying when I'm actually tweeting stuff out. So it is absolutely me as the professional in my role, but I do, a bit like Stephen, you know, it has to be something that is a bit revealing of me as well. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll probably find out a bit about what's interesting to me, but it's also about what am I trying to achieve as RUA, but also WACOS, and you know, being involved, for example, in the last election campaign, I tweeted a hell of a lot through that campaign, and what I know is that there actually are people who listen. The same as what Stephen was saying is, I've literally had phone calls from people over in Canberra and in Brisbane and Melbourne or emails or direct messages on Twitter saying, can we talk about that? And so Yeah, it's
so
just
it
been
opens
an
up the network and
absolutely
discussion on the topic.
absolutely.
Certainly, I was speaking to one of your colleagues the other day. The election came up, and I said, and I was asking her how she followed the election, and she said, "Oh, I was actually just following Francis's Twitter."
Same here.
And so then following, so amazing the application that you can have on there. Thanks, Francis. For the panel, I'm happy for any of you to ask this. How do you, I think somebody said you can't do it all, and Emily, you made the point that you don't use Twitter, and that you've obviously made a decision to use only certain elements. So that's one question. Can you do it all? And secondly, how do you integrate social media with your more traditional communication tools? I come from a marketing background, and you use the traditional marketing tools. Is there room for both? How do you mix them, and how do you use them? I don't know who would like to answer that. That was a good question.
Yeah. I'll just take up the mixing if I can, because I suppose what I've done, particularly through this project, is tried to mix what I'm personally, might personally blog about, which is something to do with a human relationship that might have gone off. And when I talk about that, I'll just give you an example. I might blog about bullying in the workplace, or I might blog about a breakdown in a relationship between two people, or I might blog about diversity around something. And so what I've tried to do in mixing is blog about something that I'm interested in, and then use this project and go, okay, well, how do I make the links between what I might be blogging around and what might be useful around this project? So, if we think about young leaders, I'm fundamentally interested in leadership and how do you help and mentor and coach people. So then using that to then put blogs into this space, this project space, to then promote the project. I'm interested in leadership from a board governance point of view, writing about it, blogging about it personally, and then using that in this forum, because obviously this is about governance, it's about leadership. And then seeing how that gets picked up in the media. So then those stories, we've had, obviously you might have seen some of the media that we've had, and that's through the blogs, people going to my website and having a look at what I've blogged about, and then they think, oh, okay, we might contact her and get a story. So that's just one
so
tiny...
that's how it can link.
That's how I've found that it can work, yeah.
Braden, Emily, do you use a mix of traditional and social comms and social media?
Yeah, I think coming from an eFriends perspective is we never train our participants or our eFriends and BeFriend volunteers to use online mediums as a sole function. They are not there to replace the face-to-face get-together that you have afterwards, because as we know, we've all sent a text or an email with an exclamation mark in the wrong spot, or you've accidentally left caps lock on and the message is taken totally out of context. And so that face-to-face connection needs to occur, but it's the power that online connection has to enable those face-to-face connections. And for a lot of people, the online connection may be slightly less scary. For some people that perhaps have social anxieties or are very isolated, making that online connection is a little bit easier to then have the confidence to go and meet people face to face. So as far as kind of online mediums and the most traditional medium of communication there is, and that is actually telling a story and having a conversation, they definitely have a role together, and in our opinion they have to be hand in hand. You can't have
one can facilitate the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it's much like Emily. When I work with young people, and we get all of our program facilitators to do this, we do basic stuff. We like to teach young people how to shake hands with somebody. I encourage young people to always make phone calls. In fact, I get them to always make all the phone calls and set things up, because they're losing touch with that. And writing emails, just a nice email, and they write how they write
how they text.
They text, yeah. So they'll write an email and LOL, G, Yeah. So anyway, I'm trying to bring it back to the back traditional. I'm trying to rope it in a bit, because I think there's some tradition that's getting lost there.
I think so, and I think the media can often beat up about the language used, but I really like the point that it's a facilitation tool and you continue that face-to-face, and I think it's important that continues.
Yeah, and for mental health, you know, and general well-being, you can't live in just an online world, and I think there are certain groups of our society that perhaps are feeling like that online world is just where they're comfortable and they're just going to stay there, but it's not healthy, and you still need the other component very much. So it's about giving people the skills and showing people where to go so that they can find opportunities for face-to-face connections online. You know, whether it's, I was talking to someone before, the dog walking group that meets at the park down the road, or, you know, opportunities like that within your community.
Steve, yeah, look, I think that growth of the online community to assist people to meet has been, I have been following personally, talking to younger friends when they go to a new city. There's a website you can go to, I think it's called Meetup, but I could be wrong.
Yes.
And a colleague who unfortunately just finished with us after 3 years, gone to Melbourne, didn't know anybody, she went straight on there, and when that week she was out with the Meetup in a couple of areas that she was at. So I think those sorts of things, bringing people together. I think one of the biggest things I think we all face, this is a broad count, but I would have 300 emails a day. And I'm sure if I talk to Lucy Morris, she's probably even more. It really is so difficult to manage that. And I think that, and I'm drawing a bit of a link here, is the fact that communication, and I find it sometimes across the board, but perhaps with younger colleagues who are so used to exposure to email and internet, that they tend occasionally send emails that probably shouldn't be sent. And I think communication, and I sort of encourage you to just, rather than email, let's talk. I'm not a great talker, I've got to tell you, but I think in some cases that trying to get that mix right is really important. But I think your comment about getting together socially and at conferences, and even today, one of the key things is morning tea, afternoon tea. When we get together and people go to conferences, many of you, in the end, it's about networking, and I think that's, you know, if you can get that mix right, you know, talking to people and then get that social side or the social media side right. It's a fine line sometimes, but pretty important.
It is, and that's a really important point, as you said, Lucy, and I'm sure a number of people here will get you 300 emails a day, and it's causing a communication gridlock, and it will only continue to get worse. So interesting looking at the social media as a facilitator of that face-to-face interaction is I think, really important. If I could move on to, this was a fascinating question about, because there are two elements to this. One is the individual's challenges or barriers, or the organisations to actually using social media, and the other is the risk element of social media. And I would be interested in the panel's views, but certainly not steal your thunder too much, Emily, but it was challenges, barriers, what are they? So maybe Nikki, when you start, what were the challenges, barriers? Why didn't you dive into it earlier?
Well, look, part of the challenge is it's like learning anything new, isn't it? Like if you don't have someone to teach you, you don't really know how to do it. So, one of the challenges for me was actually learning how to actually use the different things. Like, well, how do you post a blog and how do you use Twitter? So the actual barrier to learning or knowing how to physically do it. You know, how do you take a photo and then you've got to post it up and all those sorts of things. You know, like learn. So that was a barrier. I think sometimes it's a barrier, it's a personal barrier about, well, do I actually have anything to say? You know, who's going to listen to me? Like, why would anybody want to read my blog or listen to what I've got to say? So I think part of it is a barrier about whether you believe you've got a voice about something. And I think maybe, you know, sometimes we don't think we've got a voice, so we don't say anything. So there's for me, there's a barrier around that. You know, like all of us, we're time poor, so you want to make sure that, you know, if you are going to do something, you want to do it reasonably well. So, you know, there's a barrier around time. Yeah, I'd say they were the main things. But obviously for me, having Gihan, you know, Giha, my guru, you know, he just made it so much easier because he helped me, you know, he mentored me and showed me how to do it. So I think that you know, if you've got the barriers, like I believe that, you know, you've got to be a learner, you know, always be a learner and put yourself in a space where you say, I don't know how to do it, which is what I've obviously done and then will continue to do.
Braden, any challenges or barriers that, or you pretty much like Emily and go?
No, well, no, definitely I'd say, Nikki touched on a few of them. Basically, content and volume of that content going out. So feeling like having the race to always make sure we're putting out enough positive stuff so that we're staying relevant. That would probably be at the top of the list.
Yeah, I think Lynn said this morning, keep it positive, keep it brief but effective, which I think were two quite key points that I've had. Emily?
Can I just come in on that? I think that's one of the things when I first started, there was a lady called Sarah who runs Global, her on Twitter, she's at Global Copyright, but she's a social media expert and she happens to be on Braemar Presbyterian's board. But I said I'm starting, and then she would watch and she'd sort of sometimes come on and either retweet me but do it the way it should be done, like in a nice way. So I think that's one of the key things for people not exposed to it, is to find somebody. As an organisation, you definitely want somebody like our guest speaker today, and Sarah and others, who drive really in the space. And I think organisations need to have a person, and the new organisation from the young fellow we just talked about was here, the one that the young fellow, Ben. That type of thing, even getting somebody from uni in or something like that as a specialist, I think that's really important. On a social basis, or for myself, just having somebody pointing me in the right direction initially was really quite important. So, but for an organisation, definitely you want some expertise just to get you set and get you on the right, and keep you on the right track. Keep watching it.
Yeah. Emily?
I think, you know, as far as challenges and barriers go, there's definitely, I wouldn't go as far as saying I don't have any, but as far as learning how to use so when Meetup, you know, popped up, learning how to use that. It's about, for people, I guess it's about the foundation skills underneath, because if you know how to use YouTube, then you can look up on YouTube about how to use Meetup. But if you don't know how to use YouTube, then how else are you going to find out about Meetup unless you're actually speaking to a person? So that's when you start to see all these levels and layers of understanding, and it's quite a lot, but at the very basic level before you even are comfortable using mediums like this. But as far as, I think there's always going to be challenges about having an online presence, and we spoke about your online reputation, because what's acceptable to talk about online is going to change constantly, and what might be welcome and accepted in one year may change the next. And you know, we're always pushing the limits about what's kind of okay to speak about in the online space and what's reserved for face-to-face conversations. So anyone using online mediums, I think, faces that challenge all the time and will continue to.
I think it will be interesting, probably not a subject for today, but I think generations and cultures will also dictate very much the different uses of social media as well, which might have an impact on our organisations in different ways. Certainly, I've been brought up as the end of baby boomer, Gen X, probably slightly more conservative in the way I was brought up. I don't want to be telling people what I have to look to. I don't really find it interesting myself, let alone tell other people.
Yeah.
Now, I am being facetious, obviously, in that, but there are going to be different generations, different cultures as to why people will use it. So, very interesting. Can I touch on, we're going quite well for time. I would like to talk about the risks associated. One part of my role is looking at governance, risk management. What risks are there for organisations or individuals with social media? Stephen, maybe we'll start with you. And how do you mitigate against those risks?
Yeah, for myself, and it's only probably the last 6 or maybe 8 months that I've actually put on there that these are my comments. Not because of, probably the risks are, like you're just saying, I think is pushing it a little bit too far. That's probably the thing I'm watching out for. I mean, yeah, not to push too far. Now, this is an incredible. Speaking of Ray Glickman, who's our chairman, I'll sit across the table and speak to the Federal Minister for Ageing and Mental Health, Mark Bartlett, and we'll have a bit of to and fro, and I'll have some positive, and he'll have a crack at me, and if I need to, I'll have a crack back. But I have this incredible difficulty of using his address. And we talked about the day, why is that? I'm on there, and he's on there, this just must be me, maybe, something, but I'm getting over it, I can tell you. But it was really quite a strange thing. Here we are, I talk to him face to face and we communicate, but on there, so I'm not sure, maybe I saw that as a risk too. I mean, I may have seen this as a risk, I don't know why. But I'm just trying to work through that with some key politicians about I'm commenting about what they're saying, but not sort of including them in the conversation. So, look, I think it's probably just maybe just you need to feel right, I think, in the end, and also if it's a personal and you're being political, you've definitely got to cover it off. That they're your personal comments. There's been too many people, including ABC personalities, who've come out with stuff, and it's not, which have been controversial, and so I think that's a key for the organisation. I think we make sure, because we're new to it, that anything that's going to go, that we're feeding up to Twitter or to Facebook, is the right message and it's laid out properly. So the message is from what we've actually put on our site is actually being relayed in a way that people can understand it onto Twitter, because you're dropping down, you're taking a whole story, dropping it down, and so it makes sense. So I think because that's our face, that's our own site. So it's our face of our organisation, and I think that's really important that we don't put anything out. Not that it's got to look right and read right, and obviously, and that's a key. So people think, what the hell are these people doing? So I think that's making sure you've got your links right. I think that's very important.
Great, and you said yours is a genuine site. It's fairly straight up. You can't police the content. You've got to let it go. Does that provide a risk to you and your reputation?
Well, some of the stuff, like I said, some of the stuff the kids put on there about smoking dope 20 minutes ago behind the alley, it doesn't look good. We're trying to help these kids not smoke so much dope, and then they're posting about smoking. Anyway, it's a good connection point to talk to them. But one of the risks, it lets us get some clear stats on what's really going on. But one of the risks, I'll give an example. We're having a limited seat fundraiser coming up not so long. There's going to be alcohol served at the event. Like I said, limited seats. It's going to be a very swanky event. While we were in the planning stages of this, one of my colleagues thought it was misunderstood the communications about it and thought it was going to be a community event. So I just caught this a week ago. There had been an invitation to this closed dinner with address, time, location on our Facebook site with about 20 kids RSVP, and a bunch of other people that I'm not too sure if it's anyway. So I had to take that down, and now I'm having to wonder if a bunch of these kids are going to rock up to this private dinner. Anyway. And
then you'll see my face back. Just gate crashed.
Yeah, just gate crashed the party. Yeah. Stole a bunch of wine. Party at the old.
Party.
Exactly.
Get bouncers.
So as I said, we use Facebook to connect with our members and volunteers, and then we also have a separate Facebook group to communicate as a volunteer team. And we find that having those two zones works quite well. So we're not separating our volunteers and our leadership team from our members. There's still a way that they can interact, but it's having a separate space to speak about issues that may not necessarily interest our members, or about making decisions. And I think having those two separate spaces allows for a bit of kind of reducing the risk a little bit. But as far as members getting on our Facebook group, we have a ball every year, and we had 350 people at our ball last year, and leading up to the event, there was one particular member in our circle that's particularly vocal, both in an online space and in the face-to-face kind of arena. And he was so pumped about the ball, posting every day, I'm going to wear a white suit and da-da-da, and who wants to come as my date. And then afterwards it took a nasty turn. He put a big 2 kind of paragraph blog about how someone had not spoken to him very nicely at the ball, and you know, he wasn't going to be part of BeFriend anymore because he felt so hurt. And that was his feeling at the time, but whether that text was representative of what had actually happened, whether he'd taken it out of context, but because he had there was no barrier between what he was thinking and what he wanted to say. There was no stop in between someone to speak to and say, look, I don't know, maybe you took it out of context, you know, did you think about this? Maybe they were a bit nervous or stressed. There was nowhere in between, so he could just put it on. And obviously the whole sense about what a wonderful night it was slightly reduced because there was this negative overtone. And you can take it off the wall, but as we all know, once you write something online, it is there for good. It's on other people's feeds, or someone has already sent it to someone else. So, you know, it's not as easy to clear up when you say the wrong thing online as it is if you say the wrong thing in person.
I think that a very important point there is similar to your traditional marketing. I think you always need to consider what tools or channels you will use for your different customer groups. And I love the idea there of having different forums for different people for different needs. I realise we're running out of time a bit, so just want to go to one question on the back. We haven't talked so much because we've got caught up, I think, with the social media, which has been the theme. But just ways that we can go about making better connections between the youth sector, many of which we've had today and here today, and the aged care sector. So Braden, I'll start with you and then go down.
Yeah, well, I had some thoughts about this today, and it's every year young people, young students have to go on a work placement. It's mandatory for them to get their credits to graduate, and I think that's right there. It's such a perfect opportunity for aged care organizations to just make themselves available to the school, and you'll find the schools will actually do most of the work because they're starving for places for these kids to go. So if you can make it something cool, something that these kids can be exposed to, they may go into that as a career path in their lives, and it'll really bring some nice fresh energy into the sector, and it's needed. They need places to send the kids need places to go, and it would be a good opportunity for you guys to get them in there.
Fabulous. Emily?
I think just generally opening up the opportunity to have conversations. You know, this type of event is quite innovative. It hasn't happened before, and there needs to be more of it. So this is a face-to-face forum, and then, you know, like the website, there needs to be just generally more opportunities to connect in this way, and this is a really good start, I think.
Fabulous. Nikki?
Well, I wrote the same thing. I put, you know, I think you use social media to make a connection, to start a conversation, but then you need to meet up to continue the conversation. So it's just a way of connecting, but you've got to meet face to face and
keep those traditional.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Stephen?
Look, the program that's been run here has been sensational to bring not just young people, but high-powered young people into to look at aged care and generally all the other messages that have been developed. Look, I think that what my colleagues, panellists said, I agree with all of that. Look, I think that there's a real reality. There is another driver, I think, and there's something we need to explain, share more wider. That population, we won't go for the demographics, is ageing, but will live longer. So the younger people in their 25 or 30 to 40, they're going to have a major part to play in the aged care process because they're going to be stuck with it. So I think, I'm sorry.
That's why we get you in.
Because they will, and I think that's, you know, that sort of working with them to sort of get them understanding, which this group's done. We're looking at, for the coming election, we see the parties are going to be focused onto economics and all the big things, but we think there's a really strong opportunity to develop some online, a social media presence to drive a younger message in this election. Not by giving money or anything, but a younger presence around ageing.
Yep.
And the importance of grandparents and parents and the whole system. That it is with children and ageing. I think younger people see that both as we all see as vulnerable areas, but I think that this group shows, and with the new e-book and that sort of thing, that for an election it'd be very interesting to see a young campaign. And the beauty of the young campaign socially, it's not about Western Australia. If you get it right, and you've seen it with this group, this has had so much Australia-wide publicity and probably overseas as well, that you can drive a message out of that with a really good core team of young people in this space to drive a message about ageing broadly in the coming election. It would be an interesting thing. Well, more than interesting. I think it's something we would like to pursue, and we'll have further talk about. So I think that's something that we'd be keen to have a look at, and that would further develop the view of younger people about the ageing and positive ageing, really.
Absolutely. That's fabulous. As any good facilitator, we've gone over time. Any burning questions from the floor? If not, I'm sure you can catch up with them. Would you please thank the panel, Stephen?